is Matthew Wayne Selznick, and this is Sonitotum, episode 104. Hello, my friends. On this and every episode of Sonitotum, we talk about making stuff, mostly writing, finding success as we each define it for ourselves, and staying healthy and sane in the process. Who am I to be talking to you about such things? Well, I have been an independent publisher since 2005 or 1989, depending on what you want to count as independent publishing. This is far from my first rodeo, but as we like to say around here, it's the venue and the bulls and the horses and especially the clowns that keep changing. So I try to approach things from the perspective of an experienced beginner, a beginner's mind, as the Zen Buddhists like to say. Episodes of Sonitotum alternate between conversations with other writers, authors, poets, and creators, and solo episodes like this one, where I get you up to date on what's been going on with me in my creative life and share triumphs, challenges, discoveries, all that stuff. Hopefully in a way that is of value to you and probably at least gives you some new knowledge and provides some commiseration and teaching moments. So what's been going on? Well, since I last spoke to you in a solo episode, I've really been going deep on figuring out one of my sort of holy grails, which is creating and or finding, cobbling together the perfect writing software for fiction and nonfiction. And sure, there are things like Scrivener and YWriter and Atticus and Plotter and all the rest. You know all the various options. This is a very crowded niche when it comes to tools, software, services, all that stuff for writers, especially fiction writers. And I am a Scrivener user. Scrivener is probably the most popular of these sorts of things. But honestly, and as I've said on other episodes of Sonitotum, I'm not a big fan of Scrivener. I'm not a big fan of how if you're not online when it starts up, and it does a licensing check, it won't let you run the software, even though you've paid it, even though you've got a license key right there in the software. I don't like how it's so bloated with features and yet doesn't really allow you to have the flexibility that I, for one, would want in my writing software. So I've been looking for something that can be both a writing environment and a story Bible and a wiki, something that I can query to get information about not just the current work, but any of the works that I might put into it. Really a home base for my story worlds and all the fiction written therein, and also for nonfiction projects. Also, it's got to be something that stays out of my way. And that's one of the problems I have with Scrivener is if I have to struggle with the software to get it to behave in a way that works for my brain and my workflow and my process, then it's very easy for me to come out of my process and flow and focus. As a creator, I have very few opportunities for extended, deep focus, uninterrupted, undistracted work. And if the thing that I'm using to do the work is also getting in the way, that's a big no for me. And unfortunately, more often than not, that is the case with Scrivener. So, what have I found? So some months back in a previous episode of Sonitotum, and I will have the link in the show notes over there at mattselznick.com. As always, just click on the podcast button there on the homepage or the Sonitotum link in the menu up top. I did a podcast episode on what really would define my perfect dream holy grail writing application. And at the time, I had been talking about how I was looking at Obsidian. And I think I talked about how it comes close to what I was looking for, but was kind of a challenge to really bend to my will, even though it is inherently very flexible. Well, time has passed. Obsidian has improved and added features. And also, though, I have tried to remember, the maxim of what would this look like if it was easy? In other words, don't get too much bogged down with all of the ways that something could be done with complexity, but just think about the bare bones of what I need, what I want, and what is the simplest way with the fewest bells and whistles that I can accomplish that. So I took another look at Obsidian as a writing environment. Now keep in mind, I use Obsidian already in my personal and professional life for pretty much everything. Note-taking, to-do lists, records. It is sort of my off-board brain, which is what it's described as, basically. So let's talk, before I go any further, about what Obsidian is. Obsidian is in the class of software applications and services that are commonly known as knowledge management systems. They're designed to take notes and ideas and snippets and collect and keep them in a way that can be organized and categorized and inspected and compared and all that. Managing your knowledge. Examples would be Notion or Evernote or Microsoft Note. There are others in the class like AnyNote, Tana. There's a bunch of them. I'll put some examples in the show notes. Obsidian is from the same folks who created DynaList, which is a very, very bare bones, very deceptively simple outliner that I used for many years before kind of upgrading and moving over to Obsidian for my knowledge management. So the thing about Obsidian, a knowledge management application is really just a collection of documents, right? With Obsidian, all those documents and their folders live on your computer, on your local machine. So there's no need for an online connection. There's nothing is stored in the cloud or anything like that. Everything is right there on your local machine. So if you're concerned about privacy, if you're concerned about losing data because you have to subscribe to some cloud service and who knows how reliable that is, well, Obsidian stores everything on your machine. And all of those documents within that file structure, Obsidian calls the collection of documents a vault. And you can have multiple vaults for different purposes. Every file that you create in Obsidian is a plain text file, which means you can open up any of those documents and read them in pretty much anything. Notepad, Notepad++, anything that reads text files will read the content that you create in Obsidian. Obsidian uses the Markdown language, which is again, text-based method of applying formatting to plain text. And the great thing about this is this gives you the flexibility within Obsidian of still having things like headers and bold and underline and italics, but having it all be in natural language so that even if you're not opening a document in Obsidian, even if Obsidian disappears tomorrow, you can still very easily understand and read everything that you've created in it. That's huge because basically that means your documents are future-proof and completely portable, which is a big deal. I mentioned that Obsidian does not require an online connection to work. However, what if you want to use Obsidian, you want to access your vault, your work on multiple machines? Well, while they offer a for-pay syncing feature so that they do put your data up in the cloud as well as on your local machine so that you can open the same vault and pick up where you left off on, say, your desktop or your laptop or your phone. While they offer that, because everything is in a plain text file, any kind of cloud sync tool will work. Dropbox is a popular one. I use the free sync thing, which again, I'll have a link in the show notes. And it works pretty great. I can create something in Obsidian on my desktop machine. As long as sync thing is running, when I open up my laptop later on, give it a minute to sync up, I can open Obsidian on the laptop, and there's all the stuff with all the updates. Same thing with my phone, although I admit I don't use Obsidian on the phone all that much just because of the form factor and the user interface and the fact that it's, a small device. So everything is based on your local computer, and it can be synced, if you so choose, on multiple computers. Obsidian is extensible. There are core plugins, little extensions that come with it, and there are scores and scores of community-developed plugins that add even more functionality. And its look and feel, its appearance is very customizable, either through the use of pre-made themes, which, just like the plugins, are free, or by doing a little customization either with the actual built-in interface, or if you know a little CSS, cascading style sheets programming, very simple stuff once you understand the concept behind it. You can adapt Obsidian to look pretty much any way you like. So, I mentioned the extensions. These are really the things that help Obsidian be what I'm excited to say is where I'm going to be doing definitely my work in progress, Shadow of the Outsider. I've managed to have this become the environment that does stay out of my way and does provide the flexibility that I want. And as I was going to say, part of that is through the plugins that it comes with and the plugins that are available. Some of the built-in plugins include a word count, so you can keep track of the words in a single document or whatever's highlighted. It has tagging, so you can attach tags to each document. Like, say you want to have a tag for rough draft or second draft. You can apply properties, which are kind of metadata to each file, each document. And there are templates that you can create. So I'm going to explain how the tagging, the properties, and the templates all kind of work together to really make this kind of a cool powerhouse. And I'm going to talk about that by giving you an example of how I'm using it. So we'll start with templates. Let's say, in the case of writing fiction, that you want to have a particular preset blank document for your scenes. Like, I want to start writing a new scene. you can create a template that has all the elements that would be in the scene, so that you can just say, create a new document, apply the scene template to it, and Bob's your uncle. There's all that stuff. Now, what do I mean by all that stuff? Well, that's where properties come in. Properties are basically metadata. Metadata is information about the document that is stored in the document itself. It's information about itself. The Obsidian properties can be pretty much anything you want. For example, I'll have a property called point of view, and that's part of my scene template. So when I open up a scene using the scene template, I can apply a character to that point of view field. So I decide this scene has Joe Schmo in it. I just type Joe Schmo in the point of view property field. If this takes place at the cottage, I have a location property, and so I put cottage under location. Some of the other things I use on my scene template would be setting the scene, which is sort of the where are we when the scene begins, and what happens, which is usually just a couple of sentences to guide me in what occurs during that scene. Must-haves, both plot must-haves and emotional must-haves. How do the characters change? What is the action reaction? Many people, speaking of action and reaction, like to apply those status points to a scene. I know this is popular in Scrivener. So maybe you want to label a scene as a reaction scene or an action scene. You can do that with properties, or you can do that with tags. Tags are, just like anywhere else online, a hashtag and the word. Also, Obsidian incorporates internal hyperlinks. So you can link words and phrases to documents. What this means is Obsidian becomes essentially also a wiki, because you can even link to pages that don't exist yet. So let's say Joe Schmo is my point of view character. I could make Joe Schmo a link in that property field, click on that, and if I have a document all about Joe Schmo, that document will open up. I can even have it open up in a new tab so that I can look at both my scene and my character sheet about Joe. If you don't have a document called Joe Schmo, it'll let you know, here are all the things that are linked in this document that don't exist yet, and you can go ahead and create those. So you can start to see the possibilities here. You could have your characters listed, your settings, emotional beats, all that stuff. And through the use of one of the community plugins, something called Data View, you can actually query everything in your vault. So every property, every tag, every piece of information that you've set up about your documents, you can query. So maybe you've got your manuscript, you've got all these documents, each one is a scene or a chapter or however you like to break things up, and you've got all your properties going. And maybe you want to find out, how many times does Joe Schmo, how many scenes does Joe Schmo appear in? So with the Data View plugin, you can create a little query. Show me how many scenes Joe Schmo is in, and it'll pop up that answer in a table. How many of my characters have blue eyes? Well, if your properties on your character sheets includes eye color, you can have it answer that question. And again, these are very basic examples, but I think you can start to see the potential there, right? Tell me how many scenes are reactive instead of active, and do I have the right balance? That sort of thing. How many words are in the Act 1 folder? How many words are in Act 2? How many, so on and so forth. All of this stuff might sound complicated, but it is pretty simple to set up. But I haven't really talked yet about the big thing about this that makes it a Scrivener killer. And remember, Obsidian is free. Obsidian creates documents that you can read anywhere. And Obsidian does not require an online connection to run. So the thing that really emulates intentionally a Scrivener kind of thing is a community plugin called Longform. And in Longform, you create a project, which is usually, the title of your short story or novel or what have you. And you tell the project, okay, look in this folder for all of the scenes that belong to this project. And then there you go. You just create scenes, apply them to that project, create the scenes using your scene template, right? Apply them to that project, and then you can organize those documents however you see fit, just like in Scrivener. And you can even nest them. So you could have scenes and subscenes and sections and all that stuff. Also, through the use of a plugin called Pandoc, yes, you can export your project to a doc file or an EPUB file or anything. Now, I will say that any kind of converter is going to require that you do a little finesse to it to make it just right. But the same thing goes for Scrivener. Scrivener makes you jump through all kinds of hoops to create the perfect sort of compile, and it's still not a perfect EPUB when you're done. So, yeah, Obsidian allows you to organize and write your fiction and create and collect documents related to your fiction. And it's all folder and file based, and it's all in natural language. It's all in plain text. And I haven't even gotten to other little cool things like a built-in whiteboard, an infinite canvas that you can use to create, if you're more visual, you can use it to create storyboards or treat it like a corkboard, for your notes if you like to organize things that way. There's a great plugin called Excalidraw, which is an open source project that's been adapted for Obsidian, where you can sketch and actually draw inside of Obsidian. You can import web pages and other documents and PDFs into your vault to make that part of your story Bible. A lot of folks like to clip pictures of celebrities or whatnot and use them as character pictures. You can do that in Obsidian. And again, it doesn't cost anything, and there's no need to be online to use it. So I've been digging in and looking at Obsidian with a fresh mind when it comes to my fiction, and only adding the things that I really need to get going. And I'm excited about it. Oh, I should mention, the look and feel of the whole thing. I've got mine set up so that the writing environment, number one, you can make it completely full screen and distraction free. So the writing environment has sort of a cream background with Courier font. And I've done a little tinkering with the CSS so that it looks just more or less like a typewriter page, which I like because that's how I started as a writer, on a typewriter, a manual typewriter. I've got a little plugin, a little tiny applet that runs on my computer, and this is completely optional, of course, that creates manual typewriter clacking sounds when you type. It even has a little bell when you hit enter. Between that and the full screen mode, zero distraction mode, and the gentle sort of cream colored background and the typewriter-like font, I can get into Obsidian and start typing, and I feel like I'm in that zone. ritual and certain practices to help you kind of get in the mindset of writing are super important. And this allows me to create that. So that's pretty cool. And that's kind of, this is probably as close as I'm going to get to that ideal writing environment. I'm committed to finishing Shadow of the Outsider, my work in progress, in Obsidian and taking it all the way through. And yeah, that's cool. That's what I've been up to. Now, if you're interested in learning more about how to use Obsidian as a complete sort of one-stop story world, Bible, wiki, note-taking, manuscript organizing and writing application, I am strongly considering creating a course that takes you from getting and installing Obsidian to setting up all the things that I've talked about to create this writing environment, to compiling a document, all the way through, soup to nuts, A to Z, everything about setting up and using Obsidian as a fiction writing and story world Bible environment. I'm really considering creating a course to that effect. So if you're interested in that, and this would be somewhere between worth my time and relatively inexpensive for the amount of information presented, and considering that everything I'm going to present is going to be free for you to download and use. So I'm thinking under $50 max for this course, which would include, of course, video and all the steps and the whole bit. If you are interested in my creating something like that, I'm going to put a little preliminary line in the water and see if anybody bites. Just let me know. Yeah, hey, Matt, I'm very interested in taking a course that you create about setting up Obsidian as a writing and story world Bible environment. And I'll gauge the interest and we'll go from there. matt@mattselznick.com. matt@mattselznick.com. Let's do a little business, shall we? Last episode, I mentioned that I was trying to give away a chapbook edition of my latest novelette, Reggie vs. Kaiju Storm Dragon Squidbat, that had been purchased specifically so that I could give it away by one of my multiversalist patron members, J.C. Hutchins. I am happy to say that I have the winner of the giveaway. I got all of 2 entries, people who were interested in getting this chapbook for free. And remember, this is the second time I tried to give it away. The first time around, nobody wanted it, which, okay. This time around, though, I am happy to say that the chapbook will be sent in just a couple of days to Christopher McGinnis of California. So, Christopher, thank you very much. I think Christopher came to the show through my conversation with Tom Carnell last episode, and Christopher heard that and heard my call for this free chapbook. And of the 2 people, he was randomly selected, literal coin flip. So, Christopher, thank you very much for that, and be on the lookout for your chapbook. And again, thanks to J.C. Hutchins for purchasing the chapbook with the specific intent of having me give it away to a listener of Sonitotum. And speaking of J.C. Hutchins, J.C., as I mentioned, is one of my Multiversalist patron members. The Multiversalists is my community of friends and fans who are the ones I'm thinking about when I say I make things for people who like the kinds of things I make. The multiversalists are my peeps. Patron members are the ones who have opted to contribute a little bit each month to support this podcast and all the hours and resources and energy that go into making it, and to support my creative endeavors at large. Patron members receive perks and benefits in return. One of those perks and benefits is that I give them a little shout out in every episode of Sonitotum. So let's do that, shall we? Thank you very much to J.C. Hutchins once again, to Zoe Cohen-Lay, to Jim Lewinson, to Amelia Bowen, to Ted Leinhart, and to Chuck Anderson. If you, dear listener, would like to become a patron, you can learn all about the benefits over there at mattselznick.com/be-a-patron. mattselznick.com/be-a-patron. B-E-A-patron, right? You got it. You can also, of course, just go to mattselznick.com and you will see the join the community button right there on the homepage. You can just click that. It'll take you right there. I'm not going to go into the deep, deep depths of everything patron members receive. That would take another 10 minutes or so. So I hope you go over there to mattselznick.com, click the join the community button, learn all about it. And if you find value in what I'm doing here at Sonitotum, either this episode or one of the many interview episodes, then consider being a patron. Now, the other thing that I mentioned last episode, a special deal that I have just for listeners of the show. I'm not talking about this anywhere else. You have to be listening to know about this. So I have a coaching service called Your Story Buddy, in which I sit down with a writer, an author, over the telephone or over a video call, typically on Zoom. And over the course of an hour, I help that writer suss out whatever it is that's really challenging them about their current work in progress. We talk about the story and the particular problem, and I provide the perspective that maybe they haven't received from their beta readers or their critique group or, the other folks who are in their world. I have been a writer and an author for a very long time. I've helped many, many, many people break their blocks and open new doors, if you will, in their fiction. Like the old Fire Hose song said, if the door becomes a wall, attach new hinges to it so you can use it. I help turn walls into doors with writers. Your Story Buddy is, at the moment, $75 for the hour. If you book a Your Story Buddy session with me, if you're a writer who's having trouble with your current work in progress, a particular knot you're having trouble untying, and you want to have a Your Story Buddy session with me to untie that knot, it's 1/3 off, so long as you reserve your booking before the end of July 2024. So instead of $75, it's $50, right? Just go to mattselznick.com/podcast-0724. mattselznick.com/podcast-0724. And that will take you to the booking page for Your Story Buddy at this special rate. Again, this offer and this link is just for you, the person who has listened all the way through in this episode of Sonitotum. Not talking about it anywhere else, not offering it anywhere else, except to you. But you gotta do your booking before the end of July 2024. You don't have to have your session in July, but we got to reserve it. You got to pay for it before the end of July 2024. Your story buddy for $50 instead of $75. Go to mattselznick.com/podcast-0724. I can't wait to help you out with your story. I really, really enjoy coaching writers on their works and seeing the light bulbs light up and the blocks crumble. So I hope I can do that for you. All right, folks. There's other stuff going on. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk just to my patrons about this and that. Patrons get uncut, unedited, usually expanded versions of every episode of Sonitotum as a privilege and as a perk of being a member patron. So we're going to talk to them. Okay. So that was for my patrons. Just got done talking to them. And again, if you want to be in on that, if you want to hear the uncut, unedited editions of every episode of Sonitotum, all 104 episodes, including this one, which includes extended, uncut versions of every interview, every conversation I've had with other authors, writers, what have you. Remember, you can go to mattselznick.com and just click on the Join the Community button right there on the homepage. If you have anything to say about this episode or any episode of Sonitotum, of course, you can write me at matt@mattselznick.com, or you can leave a comment at the bottom of the show notes for this episode, episode 104, over there at mattselznick.com. Just click on the podcast button and you will see episode 104, pretty close to the top of the page there. Click through, leave your comment at the bottom of the show notes. And if you like, you could even record a little voice message, maybe on your phone, and email that to me at matt@mattselznick.com. Feedback is not just encouraged, I kind of depend on it to know what you think about what's going on here. It's not a community unless we talk to each other, right? If you enjoy Sonitotum and you have a moment or two, you know what to do, kiddies. It's a podcast. Please rate and review Sonitotum wherever it is you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever it is, wherever it is that you get Sonitotum. I guarantee you there is a place there to rate and probably review this episode and this show. A rating, 5 stars, if that's what you think it deserves, just takes a few seconds. A review in your own words, maybe a minute or two, but it really makes a difference in raising the visibility of this show and bringing in new listeners. So thank you in advance for rating and reviewing the show. Whew. All right. Yeah. In 2 weeks, I will be back here with a conversation episode. I'll be talking to Juliet Kemp, who is a fantasy and science fiction author. So see you for that. My name is Matthew Wayne Selznick. Take care.